Hello, I'm Brandon LeBlanc from the Cersei Institute. I'll be reading from the Lattimore translation. I'll be reading Book 10. We came next to the Aeolian island, where Alos lived, Hippotas' son, beloved by the immortal gods on a floating island, the whole enclosed by a rampart of bronze not to be broken, and the sheer of the cliff runs upward to it. And 12 children were born to him in his palace, 6 of them daughters, and 6 sons in pride of their youth. So he bestowed his daughters on his sons to be their consorts. And evermore beside their dear father and gracious mother, these feast, and good things beyond number are set before them, and all their days the house fragrant with food echoes in the courtyard. But their nights they sleep each one by his modest wife, under coverlets and on bedsteads corded for bedding. We came to the city of these men and their handsome houses, and a whole month he entertained me and asked me everything of Ilion, and the ships of the Argives and the Achaeans' homecoming. And I told him all the tales that happened. But when I asked him about the way back and requested conveyance, again he did not refuse, but granted me passage. He gave me a bag made of skin taken off a 9-year ox, stuffed full inside with courses of all the blowing winds. For the son of Kronos had set him in charge over the winds, and told them to hold them still or start them up at his pleasure. He stowed it away in the hollow ship, tied fast with a silver string, so there should be no wrong breath of wind, not even a little, but set the west wind free to blow me and carry the ships and the men aboard them on their way. But it was not so to be, for we were ruined by our own folly. Nevertheless, we sailed on, night and day for 9 days, and on the 10th at last appeared the land of our fathers, and we could see people tending fires. We were very close to them. But then the sweet sleep came upon me, for I was worn out with always handling the sheet myself, and I would not give it up to any other companion so we could come home the quicker to our own country. But my companions talked with each other and said that I was bringing silver and gold home with me, given me by great-hearted Alos, son of Hippotas. And thus they would speak to each other, each looking at the man next to him. See, now this man is loved by everybody and favored by all, whenever he visits anyone's land and city, and is bringing home with him his handsome treasures taken from the plunder of Troy, while we, who have gone through everything he has on the same venture, come home with our hands empty. Now too Aeolus, in favor of friendship, has given him all these goods. Let us quickly look inside and see what is there, and how much silver and gold this bag contains inside it. So he spoke, and the evil counsel of my companions prevailed, and they opened the bag, and winds all burst out. Suddenly the storm caught them away and swept them over the water, weeping, away from their own country. Then I, waking, pondered deeply in my own blameless spirit, whether to throw myself over the side and die in the open water, or wait it out in silence and still be one of the living. And I endured it and waited, and hiding my face, I lay down in the ship, while all were carried on the evil blast of storm wind back to the Aeolian island, and my friends grieving. There again we set foot on the mainland and fetched water, and my companions soon took their supper there by the fast ships. But after we had tasted of food and drink, then I took along one herald with me, and one companion, and went up to the famous house of Alos. There I found him sitting at dinner with his wife and his own children. We came to the house beside the pillars, and on the doorstone we sat down, and their minds wondered at us, and they asked us, "What brings you back, Odysseus? What evil spirit has vexed you? We sent you properly on your way so you could come back to your own country and house and whatever else is dear to you." So they spoke, and I, though sorry at heart, answered, "My wretched companions brought me to ruin, helped by the pitiless sleep. Then make it right, dear friends, for you have the power." So I spoke to them, plying them with words of endearment. But they were all silent. Only the father found words and answered, "O least of living creatures, out of this land, hurry. I have no right to see on his way, none to give passage to any man whom the blessed gods hate with such bitterness. Out, this arrival means you are hateful to the immortals." So speaking, he sent me groaning heavily out of his palace, and from there, grieving still at heart, we sailed on further. But the men's spirit was worn away with the pain of rowing and our own silliness, since homecoming seemed ours no longer. Nevertheless, we sailed on, night and day for 6 days, and on the 7th came to the sheer citadel of Lemos. Telepylos of the Lastygones, where the one herdsman driving his flocks and hails another, who answers as he drives his flocks out. And there a man who could go without sleep could earn him double wages, one for herding the cattle, one for the silvery sheep. There the courses of the night and day lie close together. There, as we entered the glorious harbor, which a sky-towering cliff encloses on either side, with no break anywhere, but and two projecting promontories facing each other, run out toward the mouth, and there is a narrow entrance. There all the rest of them had their oar-swept ships in the inward part. There they tied up close together inside the hollow harbor, for there never was a swell of surf inside it, neither great nor small, but there was a pale calm on it. I myself, however, kept my black ship on the outside, at the very end, making her fast to the cliff with a cable, and climbed to a rocky point of observation and stood there. From here, no trace of cattle nor working of men was visible. All we could see was the smoke going up from the country. So I sent companions ahead, telling them to find out what men, eaters of bread, might live here in this country. I chose 2 men and sent a third with them as a herald. They left the ship and walked on a smooth road where the wagons carried the timber down from the high hills to the city. And there in front of the town, they met a girl drawing water. This was the powerful daughter of the Lacedemonian Antiphanes, who had gone down to the sweet running wellspring, Atarche, whence they would carry their water back to the city. My men stood by her and talked with her and asked her who was king of these people and who was lord over them. She readily pointed out to them the high-roofed house of her father. But when they entered the glorious house, they found there a woman as big as a mountain peak, and the sight of her filled them with horror. At once she summoned famous Antiphanes, her husband, from their assembly, and he devised dismal death against them. He snatched up one of my companions and prepared him for dinner, but the other 2 darted away in flight and got back to my ship. The king raised a cry through the city. Hearing him, the powerful Laestrygones came swarming up from every direction, tens of thousands of them, and not like men, like giants. These, standing along the cliffs, pelted my men with man-sized boulders, and a horrid racket went up from the ships of men being killed and ships being smashed to pieces. They speared them like fish and carried them away for their joyless feasting. But while they were destroying them in their deep water harbor, meanwhile I, drawing from beside my thigh the sharp sword, chopped away the cable that tied the ship with the dark prow, and called out to my companions and urged them with all speed to throw their weight on the oars and escape threatening evil. And they made the water fly, fearing destruction. Gladly my ship and only mine fled out from the overhanging cliffs to the open water, but the others were all destroyed there. From there we sailed on further along, glad to have escaped death, but grieving still at heart for the loss of our dear companions. We came to Aea, which is an island. There lived Circe, the lovely hair, the dread goddess who talks with mortals, who is his own sister to the malignant-minded Aeetes, for they both are children of Helios, who shines on mortals, and their mother Perse, who in turn is daughter of Ocean. There we brought our ship to the shore in silence, at a harbor fit for ships, and some god guided us in. There we disembarked, and for 2 days and 2 nights we lay there, for sorrow and weariness eating out our hearts. But when the fair-haired Dawn her rounds brought on the 3rd day, then at last I took up my spear again, my sharp sword, and went quickly from beside the ship to find a lookout place, to look for some trace of people, listen for some sound. I climbed to a rocky point of observation and stood there, and got a sight of smoke which came from the halls of Circe, going up from wide-wayed earth, undergrowth, and forest. Then I pondered deeply in my heart and my spirit, whether since I had seen the fire and smoke to investigate, but in the division of my heart this way seemed the best to me, to go back first to the fast ship and the beach of the sea, and give my companions some dinner, then send them forward to investigate. But on my way I was close to the oar-swept vessel. Some god, because I was all alone, took pity upon me, and sent a great stag with towering antlers right in my very path. He had come from his range in the forest down to the river to drink, for the fierce strength of the sun was upon him. As he stepped out, I hit him in the middle of the back next to the spine, so that the brazen spearhead smashed its way clean through. He screamed and dropped in the dust, and the life spirit fluttered from him. I set my foot on him and drew the bronze spear out of the wound it had made and rested it on the ground, while I pulled growing twigs and willow withes and braiding them into rope about 6 feet in length and looping them over the feet of this great monster on both sides, lashed them together, and with him loaded over my neck went toward the black ship, propping myself on my spear, for there was no way to carry him on the shoulder, holding him with one hand. He was such a very big beast. I threw him down by the ship and roused my companion standing beside each man and speaking to him in kind words. Dear friends, sorry as we are, we shall not yet go down into the house of Hades, not until our day is appointed. Come then, while there is something to eat and drink by the fast ship, let us think of our food and not be worn out with hunger. So I spoke, and they listened at once to me and obeyed me, and unveiling their heads along the beach of the barren water, they admired the stag, and truly he was a very great beast. But after they had looked at him and their eyes had enjoyed him, they washed their hands and set to preparing a communal high feast. So for the whole length of the day until the sun's setting, we sat there feasting on unlimited meat and sweet wine. But when the sun went down and the sacred darkness came over, then we lay down to sleep along the break of the seashore. But when the young dawn showed again with her rosy fingers, then I held my assembly and spoke forth to all of them. Hear my words, my companions, in spite of your heart sufferings. Dear friends, for we do not know where the darkness is, nor the sunrise, nor where the sun who shines upon people rises, nor where he sets. Then let us hasten to our minds and think whether there is any course left open to us. But I think there is none, for I climbed to a rocky place of observation and looked at the island, and the endless sea lies in all a circle around it, and the island itself lies low, and my eyes saw smoke rising in the middle through the undergrowth and the forest. So I spoke, and the inward heart of them was broken as they remembered Antiphates and the Gastonian, and the violence of the great-hearted cannibal Cyclops. And they wept loud and shrill, letting the big tears fall, but there came no advantage to them for all their sorrowing. I counted off all my strong grieved companions into 2 divisions, and appointed a leader for each, I myself taking one, while godlike Eurylochus had the other. Promptly then we shook the lots in a brazen helmet, and the lot of great-hearted Eurylochus sprang out. He then went on his way, and with him 22 companions weeping, and we whom they left behind were mourning also. In the forest glen they came upon the house of Circe. It was in an open place, and put together from stones well polished. And all about it there were lions and wolves of the mountains, whom the goddess had given evil drugs and enchanted. And these made no attack on the men, but came up thronging about them, waving their long tails and fawning, in the way that dogs go fawning about their master when he comes home from dining out, for he always brings back something to please them. So these wolves with great strong claws and lions came fawning about on my men. But they were afraid when they saw the terrible beasts. They stood there in the forecourt of the goddess with the glorious hair, and heard Circe inside singing in a sweet voice as she went up and down a great design on a loom, immortal such as goddesses have, delicate and lovely and glorious their work. Now Polites, leader of men, who was the best and dearest to me of my friends, began the discussion. Friends, someone inside going up and down a great piece of weaving is singing sweetly, and the whole place murmurs to the echo of it, whether she is a woman or goddess. Come, let us call her. So he spoke to them, and the rest gave voice and called her. And at once she opened the shining doors and came out and invited them in. And all in their innocence entered. Only Eurylochus waited outside, for he suspected treachery. She brought them inside and seated them on chairs and benches and mixed them a potion with barley and cheese and pale honey, added to Permanian wine. But she put into the mixture malignant drugs to make them forgetful of their own country. When she had given them this and they had drunk it down, the next thing she struck them with her wand and drove them into her pig pens. And they took on the look of pigs, with the heads and voices and bristles of pigs. But the minds within them stayed as they had been before. So crying they went in, and before them Circe threw down acorns to them to eat, and ilex and cornel buds, such foods as pigs who sleep on the ground always feed on. Eurylochus came back again to the fast black ship to tell the story of our companions and of their dismal fate, but he could not get a word out, though he was trying to speak, but his heart was stunned by great sorrow, and both eyes filled with tears. He could think of nothing but lamentation. But after we had wondered at him and asked him questions, at last he told us about the loss of his other companions. We went, O glorious Odysseus, through the growth as you told us, and found a fine house in the glen. It was in an open place and put together from stones well polished. Someone, goddess or woman, was singing inside in a clear voice as she went up and down her loom, and they called her and spoke to her, and at once she opened the shining doors and came out and invited them in. And all in their innocence entered, only I waited for them outside, for I suspected treachery. The whole lot of them vanished away together, nor did one single one come out, though I sat and watched for a long time. So he spoke, and I slung my great bronze sword with the silver nails across my shoulders, and hung my bow on also, and told him to guide me back to the same way he had gone. But he, clasping my knees in both hands, entreated me, and in a loud lamentation spoke to me and addressed me. Illustrious, do not take me against my will there. Leave me here, for I know you will never come back yourself, nor bring back any of your companions. Let us rather make haste, and with these who are left escape, for we still may avoid the day of evil. So he spoke, and I answered again in turn and said to him, Eurylochus, you may stay here eating and drinking, even where you are and beside the hollow black ship. Only I shall go, for there is strong compulsion upon me. So I spoke and started up from the ship and the seashore. But as I went up the lonely glens and was coming near to the great house of Circe, skilled in medicines, there as I came up to the house, Hermes of the golden staff met me on my way in the likeness of a young man with beard new grown, which is the most graceful time of young manhood. He took me by the hand and spoke to me and named me, saying, Where are you going, unhappy man, all alone, through the hilltops, ignorant of the land lay, and your friends are here in Circe's place, in the shape of pigs and holed up in the close pig pens? Do you come here meaning to set them free? I do not think you will get back yourself, but must stay here with the others. But see, I will find you a way out of your troubles and save you. Here, this is a good medicine. Take it and go into Circe's house. It will give you power against the day of trouble. And I will tell you all the malevolent guiles of Circe. She will make you a potion and put drugs in the food, but she will not even so be able to enchant you, for this good medicine, which I will give you now, will prevent her. I will tell you the details of what to do. As soon as Circe with her long wand strikes you, then, drawing from beside your thigh your sharp sword, rush forward against Circe as if you were raging to kill her, and she will be afraid and invite you to go to bed with her. Do not then resist and refuse the bed of the goddess, for so she will set free your companions and care for you also. But bid her swear the oath of the blessed gods that she has no other evil hurt that she is devising against you, so she will not make you weak and unmanned once you are naked. So spoke Argophantes, and he gave me the medicine, which he picked out of the ground, and he explained the nature of it to me. It was black at the root, but with a milky flower. The gods call it moly. It is hard for mortal men to dig up, but the gods have power to do all things. Then Hermes went away, passing over the wooded island toward tall Olympus, and I meanwhile made my way to the house of Circe. But my heart was a storm in me as I went. Now I stood outside at the doors of the goddess with the glorious hair, and standing I shouted aloud, and the goddess heard me. And at once she opened the shining doors and came out and invited me in. And I, deeply troubled in my heart, went in with her. She made me sit down in a chair that was wrought elaborately and splendid with silver nails, and under my feet was a footstool. She made a potion for me to drink and gave it in a golden cup, and with evil thoughts in her heart, added the drug to it. Then, when she had given it and I drank it off, without being enchanted, she struck me with her wand and spoke and named me. Go to your sty now and lie down with your other friends there. So she spoke, but I, drawing from beside my thigh the sharp sword, rushed forward against Circe as if I were raging to kill her. But she screamed aloud and ran under my guard, and clasping both knees in loud lamentation spoke to me and addressed me in winged words. What man are you and whence? Where are your city and parents? The wonder is on me that you drank my drugs and have not been enchanted, for no other man beside could have stood up under my drugs once he drank and they passed the barrier of his teeth. There's a mind in you no magic will work on. You are the resourceful Odysseus. Argophantes of the golden staff was forever telling me you would come to me on your way back from Troy with your fast black ship. Come then, put away your sword in its sheath, and let us two go up into my bed, so that lying together in the bed of love, we may then have faith and trust in each other. So she spoke, and I answered her again and said to her, Circe, how can you ask me to be gentle with you when it is you who turned my companions into pigs in your palace? And now you have me here yourself. You treacherously ask me to go into your chamber and go to bed with you, so that when I am naked, you can make me weakling, unmanned. I will not be willing to go to bed with you unless you can bring yourself, O goddess, to swear me a great oath that there is no other evil hurt you devise against me. So I spoke, and she at once swore me oath as I asked her. But after she had sworn me the oath and made an end of it, I mounted the surpassingly beautiful bed of Circe. Meanwhile, the 4 maidservants who wait on Circe in her house were busy at their work, all through the palace. These are daughters born of the springs from the coppices, and the sacred rivers which flow down to the sea. Of these, one laid the coverlets, splendid and stained in purple, over the backs of the chairs, and spread on the seats the cloth to sit on. The second drew up silver tables and placed on them in front of the chairs, and laid out the golden serving baskets upon them. The third mixed wine, kindly sweet and fragrant, in the silver mixing bowl, and set out the golden goblets. The fourth one brought in water, then set about building up an abundant fire underneath the great cauldron, and the water heated. But when the water had come to a boil in the shining bronze, then she sat me down in the bathtub and washed me from the great cauldron, mixing hot and cold just as I wanted, and pouring it over shoulders and head to make the heart wasting weariness for my limbs. When she had bathed me and anointed me with olive oil, she put a splendid mantle and a tunic upon me, and made me sit down in a chair that was wrought elaborately and splendid with silver nails, and under my feet was a footstool. A maidservant brought water for us and poured it from a splendid and golden pitcher, holding it above a silver basin for us to wash, and she pulled a polished table before us. The grave housekeeper brought in bread and served it to us, adding many good things to it, generous with her provisions, and told us to eat. But nothing pleased my mind, and I sat there thinking of something else, mind full of evil imaginings. When Circe noticed how I sat there without ever putting my hands to the food, and with the strong sorrow upon me, she came close and stood beside me, addressed me in winged words. Why, Odysseus, do you sit so, like a man who has lost his voice, eating your heart out, but touch neither food nor drink? Is it that you suspect me of more treachery? But you have nothing to fear, since I have already sworn by my strong oath to you. So she spoke, but I answered her again and said to her, O Circe, how could any man right in his mind ever endure to taste the food and drink that are set before him, until with his eyes he saw his companions set free? So then, if you are sincerely telling me to eat and drink, set them free, so my eyes can again behold my eager companions. So I spoke, and Circe walked on out through the palace, holding her wand in her hand, and opened the doors of the pigsty and drove them out. They looked like 9-year-old porkers. They stood ranged and facing her, and she, making her way through their ranks, anointed each of them with some other medicine. And the bristles, grown upon them by the evil medicine Circe had bestowed upon them before, now fell away from them. And they turned back once more into men, younger than they had been, and taller for the eye to behold, and handsomer by far. They recognized me, and each of them clung to my hand. The lovely longing for lamentation came over us, and the house echoed terribly to the sound, and even the goddess took pity. And she, shining among goddesses, came close and said to me, Son of Laertes and seed of Zeus, resourceful Odysseus, go back down now to your fast ship in the sand of the seashore, and first of all drag your ship up on the land, stowing your possessions and all the ship's running gear away in the sea caves, and then come back, bringing with you your eager companions. So she spoke, and the proud heart in me was persuaded, and I went back down to my fast ship in the sand of the seashore. And there I found beside the fast ship my eager companions, pitiful in their lamentation and weeping big tears. And as, in the country, the calves around the cows returning from the pasture back to the dung of the farmyard, well filled with grazing, come gambling together to meet them, and the pens no longer can hold them in, but lowing incessantly they come running around their mothers, so these men, once their eyes saw me, came streaming around me, in tears, and in the spirit in them made them feel as if they were back in their own country, the very city of rugged Ithaca, where they were born and raised up. So they came in tears about me and cried in winged words, O great Odysseus, we are as happy to see you as returning as if we had come back to our own Ithacan country. But come, tell us about the death of our other companions. So they spoke, but I answered in soft words and told them, First of all, let us drag our ship up on the land, stowing our possessions and all the ship's running gear away in the sea caves, and then make haste, all of you, to come with me, so that you can see your companions in the sacred dwelling of Circe, eating and drinking, for they have all in abundance. So I spoke, and at once they did as I told them. Only Eurylochus was trying to hold back all my other companions, and he spoke to them and addressed them in winged words. Ah, poor wretches, where are we going? Why do you long for the evils of going down into Circe's palace? For she will transform the lot of us into pigs or wolves or lions, and so we shall guard her great house for her under compulsion. So too it happened with the Cyclops when our companions went into his yard, and the bold Odysseus was of their company, for it was by this man's recklessness that these two perished. So he spoke, and I considered in my mind whether to draw out the long-edged sword from beside my big thigh and cut off his head and throw it on the ground, even though he was nearly related to me by marriage. But companions checked me, First one, then another speaking, trying to soothe me. Zeus sprung Odysseus, if you ask us to, we will leave this man here to stay where he is and keep watch over the ship. You show us the way to the sacred dwelling of Circe. So they spoke and started up from the ship and the seashore, nor would Eurylochus be left alone by the hollow ship, but followed along in fear of my fierce reproaches. Meanwhile, inside the house, Circe, with loving care, bathed the rest of my companions and anointed them well with olive oil, and put about them mantles of fleece and tunics. We found them all together feasting well in the halls. When my men looked at each other in the face and knew one another, they burst into an outcry of tears, and the whole house echoed. But she, shining among goddesses, came close and said to us, Son of Laertes and seed of Zeus, resourceful Odysseus, no longer raise the swell of your lamentation. I too know all the pains you have suffered on the sea where the fish swarm, and all the damage done you on the dry land by hostile men. But come now, eat your food and drink your wine, until you gather back again into your chests that kind of spirit you had in you when you first left the land of your fathers on rugged Ithaca. Now you are all dried out, dispirited from the constant thought of your hard wandering, nor is there any spirit in your festivity because of such suffering. So she spoke, and the proud heart in us was persuaded. There, for all our days until a year was completed, we sat there feasting on unlimited meat and sweet wine. But when it was the end of a year and the months wasted away, and the seasons changed and the long days were accomplished, then my eager companions called me aside and said to me, What ails you now? It is time to think about our own country, if truly it is ordained that you shall survive and come back to your strong-founded house and to the land of your fathers. So they spoke, and the proud heart in me was persuaded. So for the whole length of the day until the sun's setting, we sat there feasting on unlimited meat and sweet wine. But when the sun went down and the sacred darkness came over, they lay down to sleep all about the shadowy chambers. But I, mounting the surpassingly beautiful bed of Circe, clasped her by the knees and entreated her, and the goddess listened to me, and I spoke to her and addressed her in winged words. O Circe, accomplish now the promise you gave, that you would see me on my way home. The spirit within me is urgent now, as also in the rest of my friends who are wasting my heart away, lamenting around me when you are elsewhere. So I spoke, and she, shining among goddesses, answered, Son of Laertes and seed of Zeus, resourceful Odysseus, you shall no longer stay in my house when none of you wish to. But first there is another journey you must accomplish and reach the house of Hades and of revered Persephone, there to consult with the soul of Tiresias, the Thespian, the blind prophet whose senses stay unshaken within him, to whom alone Persephone has granted intelligence, even after death, but the rest of them are flittering shadows. So she spoke, and the inward heart in me was broken, and I sat down in the bed and cried, nor did the heart in me wish to go on living any longer, nor to look on the sunlight. But when I had glutted myself with rolling about and weeping, then at last I spoke aloud and answered the goddess, Circe, who will be our guide on that journey? No one has ever yet in a black ship gone all the way to Hades. So I spoke, and she, shining among goddesses, answered, Son of Laertes and seed of Zeus, resourceful Odysseus, let no need for a guide on your ship trouble you. Only set up your mast pole and spread the white sails upon it, and sit still and let the blast of the north wind carry you. But when you have crossed with your ship the stream of the ocean, you will find there a thickly wooded shore and the groves of Persephone, and tall black poplars growing, and fruit-perishing willows. Then beach your ship on the shore of the deep eddying ocean, and yourself go forward into the moldering home of Hades. There Pyriphlegethon and Cocytos, which is an off-break from the water of the Styx, flow into the Acheron. There is a rock there, and the junction of two thunderous rivers. There, hero, you must go close in and do as I tell you. Dig a pit of about a cubit in each direction, and pour it full of drink offerings for all the dead. First honey mixed with milk, then a second pouring of sweet wine, and the third water, and over all then sprinkle white barley. And promise many times to the strengthless heads of the perished dead, returning to Ithaca, you will slaughter a barren cow, your best, in the palace, and pile a pyre with treasures. And to Tiresias apart dedicate an all-black ram, the one conspicuous in all your sheep flocks. But when with your prayers you have entreated the glorious forwards of the dead, then sacrifice one ram and one black female, turning them toward Erebos, but yourself turn away from them and make for where the river runs. And there the numerous souls of the perished dead will come and gather about you. Then encourage your companions and tell them, taking the sheep they are lying by, slaughtered with pitiless bronze, to skin these and burn them, and pray to the divinities, to Hades the powerful, and to revered Persephone. While you yourself, drawing from beside your thigh the sharp sword, crouch there, and do not let the strengthless heads of the perished dead draw near to the blood until you have questioned Tiresias. Then, leader of the host, the prophet will soon come to you, and he will tell you the way to go, the stages of your journey, and tell you how to make your way home on the sea where the fish swarm. So she spoke, and dawn of the golden throne came on us, and she put clothing upon me, an outer cloak and a tunic, while she, the nymph, mantled herself in a gleaming white robe, fine woven and delightful, and around her waist she fastened a handsome belt of gold, and on her head was a wimple. While I walked all about the house and roused my companions, standing beside each man and speaking to him in kind words. No longer lie abed, dreaming away in sweet sleep. The queenly Circe has shown me the way. So let us go now. So I spoke, and the proud heart in them was persuaded. Yet I did not lead away my companions without some loss. There was one, Elpenor, the youngest man, not terribly powerful in fighting nor sound in his thoughts. This man, apart from the rest of his friends in search of cool air, had lain down drunkenly to sleep on the roof of Circe's palace. And when his companions stirred to go, he, hearing their tumult and noise of talking, started suddenly up, and never thought, when he went down, to go by way of the long ladder, but blundered straight off the edge of the roof, so that his neck bone was broken out of its sockets, and his soul went down to Hades. Now, as my men were on their way, I said a word to them. You think you are on your way back now to your own beloved country, but Circe has indicated another journey for us to the house of Hades and of revered Persephone, there to consult with the soul of Tiresias the Theban. So I spoke, and the inward heart of them was broken. They sat down on the ground and lamented and tore their hair out, but there came no advantage to them from all their sorrowing. When we came down to our fast ship in the sand of the seashore, we sat down sorrowful and weeping big tears. Circe, meanwhile, had gone down herself to the side of the black ship and tethered aboard it a ram and one black female, easily passing by us unseen. Whose eyes can follow the movement of a god passing from place to place unless the god wishes?